Welcome to Mongolian Made Easy, the podcast that teaches you how to speak Mongolian in a fun and effective way. I'm Aku, your host and guide for this learning journey. Glad you're joining me today. In this episode, we'll go over interesting short phrases such as interjection, which is sometimes called exclamations in everyday conversation. Let's get started. Alright, so I wanted to start with the more positive ones first. So first one, and you might have heard this before, hore, 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 hore. So as you can hear it, it's like same word said twice, hore, hore. And it's a word that you might have seen it with some hand gestures. It's a tone or a phrase used to call out, to make something happen or create something happen with your mind and body kind of aligned together. So it's a phrase used in spiritual or religious gathering, meetings, or even family meetings, gatherings, or big feasts and events where people are praying and then they're gesturing something to happen. Kind of like in Christian tradition, amen is like the word people say to kind of seal the deal. So same case with hore, 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 hore. Alright, next one is ohe, ohe. So this word is more like huzzah or cheers. It's usually when great many people together will come together and they're cheerfully chant or express their excitement together. So, ohe. So you might have seen it in like a historical movies where a group of soldiers will say, ohe, ohe. And this is just one type of ohe. There's actually two other types of ohe. The second type of ohe is said slightly differently, and it is used to express someone is pleased. And oftentimes it's when parents are pleased with what their child has done. So someone could say like, ohaeta mi hijo, ohaeta mi hijo. So notice there's ohaeta, and that's the expression that shows the pleasure of that parent. And mi hijo is obviously my child. So that's the second type. The third type, which you might not really have seen it as often, but if you ever went to the summer festival, there's archery and then there's knuckle bone games. And when those games, when the player hits their goal, they also say ohe, but it's a different kind of ohe where it's not really the word itself being said, it's how it's named, and there's 3 different types of this, and it's a kind of like a long song that you might have heard in other art form before, and someone will sing to kind of like say, hey, we're happy you hit the goal in this game, and someone will sing like a long song right after that. And that's the overview of the 3 different types of ohe. The next word is gele or gele. So notice the in the front and gele. Or sometimes people will say gele. So a lot of Mongolian phrases sometimes are repeated twice to emphasize the significance of the word. So the word gele means shine or shine bright, but gele also means being really happy to a point where you need to express it or you're just shining, it's showing on your face. So gele is like when you see something and you're just exclaiming it right out of your body. So gele. So it can be used when you were hoping that something will pass through and you were waiting for an answer and you got the answer and it was the answer that you expected, and you would say, 그래, I got my answer. The next word is 호알차례. 호알차례. And let me say it slower. 호알차례. 호알차례. So this is the word that people would say when someone's choking and coughing, and they will hit someone's back to help, and then they'll also say 호알차례. And it's the kind of a traditional assumption. So it's like a cultural thing where when you're choking on something, we will help you, get rid of that situation, obviously. But at the same time, we will see it as, oh, it's a good omen that you have so much to eat that you're choking, so I hope you will share it with me. So 호알차례 is like, please share it with me, is the meaning of this word. So 호알차례. So if you see someone choking next time, help them, and then once they're not choking anymore, you can say 호알차례. And the next word is 우디 운들벌러래. 우디 운들벌러래. So I guess it's a phrase rather than a single word. This phrase is used when you're talking to children or kids specifically, because the phrase itself means, I hope you grow tall. So that's the direct meaning, but the meaning wrapped, like the hidden meaning, is that I hope you grow up to be a really good person. I hope you grow up well. So adults use that when they see a child and then child do something well and they deserve a praise. They can use this word to be 우디 운들벌러래. Or sometimes, in my own case, for example, when I, treat my siblings right, and then my grandpa or grandma sees it and they want to say, oh, you did pretty good, or they want to say something nice, they can say 우디 운들벌러래. Or sometimes when the child shares their own little candy with you and you want to say thank you back, people will say also 우디 운들벌러래. And I have another phrase that you will use for a child. This one is E11. E11. So like some of the previous words, it's another word that's repeated twice. And it's a word that people use to express their affection for someone, or to fondle a small child, like mother taking care of their own child. So 이위 has this tone of like there's something vulnerable and you feel this compassion for them, and that's when you say 이위. So people might say 이위 미니호 미냐흥 이위 미니도. So this is words you will typically hear in a household with small child, and then the parent or grandparents or even the siblings calling to the small child and might use 이위. Or sometimes kids will use that to people who are crying. It's almost like a replacement word in English for there. You know how when someone's crying and you say there. So maybe small kids might use 이위 to kind of calm down someone that they see and crying. So that's another way to use this word. And the next phrase is kind of similar to 이위. This one is hurhido. Hurhido. So hurhido is also a phrase when you're pitying someone, but it's more appropriate when you're pitying someone that's more of an adult, not really a small child. So it's often used when people are pitying their own parents who are growing old and they seem growing weak. So people might say hurhido minyao. So this is like, oh, my poor dad, is basically what this means. So E11 is more for children or smaller things that are vulnerable or even pets. And hurhido is more appropriate for grown-ups. Moving on to a slightly different type of phrase. This one is elliv. So the direct translation may be let's or let me, and people will use that to call to action others. And it can be one person or many person, it doesn't matter. So for example, elliv тэрийг аваад ир could be, hey, could you bring this over here for me? But elliv is kind of like grabbing someone's attention. Or when a parent sees their child, and elliv see could be like, hey, let me kiss you, right? So elliv is like a word that you start your sentence and then you finish it with whatever that you want the other to do. It's either give you attention or actually do something for you. So you'll use elliv. Next word is tullo. So this is an exact translation of the word cheers when people are clanking their glasses together after someone has said a word. So that's what people would use. And if you write it, it would be tullo with an exclamation point. And people in Mongolia don't just say tullo. Usually people will try to say an actual few blessing words. So just because this might be interesting to you, I wanted to share maybe 3 examples that you might hear when a group of people are sitting together and then they're drinking and they're making cheers and saying a few words. So the typical phrase that you might hear is 유롤 밭 얼씨게, 유롤 밭 얼씨게. So in the daily phrase, it'll sound more like 유롤 밭 얼씨게. So this means, may this blessing stay forever. The other word might be boltwe. So boltwe is like a, I hope that happens, but it's just one word. And this will complement other things that you just said, and something, boltwe is how you would use it. But if someone said something, and if you just said, oh, boltwe, then it might carry a slight negative tone, so just be careful. So the other longer phrase that people would use is үлзийтэй сайхан ирүүлийг өргөн дэвшүүлье. үлзийтэй сайхан ирүүлийг өргөн дэвшүүлье. And this phrase is a typical closing sentence after someone's speech or blessing. This phrase means we extend our warmest wishes. Last but not least, the phrase is hui, or sometimes people can say hushe. So both means hey, and usually it's used when someone's startled or when someone's trying to get attention because they're a little farther away and then they saw their acquaintance, something like that. In these situations, someone can say hui or hushe. Alright, so this part will have slightly or maybe fully negative phrases. So the first one will be kweiro or ukuyiro. So depending on the person's accent, you can say ukuyiro, or usually people say kuiro. And this is when someone has a slight disgust or discontent about whatever that they heard or a person, and that's when they'll say this word. The next one, probably not many people these days not use this word, but I've heard this used quite a bit by my grandparents. And this one's tukkim, tukkim. And this phrase was used by my grandparents when they wanted to stop whatever the person was saying because it was a very bad thing to say, or it was very bad omen to say stuff like whatever they were saying. So it would followed by tukkim moyar. So moyar is like a bad omen. So you can imagine a scenario where two or more people are talking and someone says something, and then the eldest is offended because of the quality of the phrase, and they might say tukkim to stop that phrase to be spreading and also stop the person from saying such things. So tukkim. The next word is more like a phrase that children would say to each other. So 예예 보어, 예예 보어. And this is to shame other kids. For example, in Mongolia, little children might be walking around naked, and then, slightly older child or similar age might say 예예 보어 to shame the other kid. But this is used more in a lighthearted way, not in a bullying way. So, or sometimes a parent might say 예예 보어 if they didn't wash their hands, and then you need to wash your hands, and this is more like a lighthearted way to, hey, you need to do this or that. So 예예 보어. Sometimes it's kind of used in a song because when children are talking and playing with each other, they like to talk in sort of like a song way, if that makes sense. So instead of saying just 예예 보어, they might say 예예 때 보어 도. So kind of like bringing a little bit of melody to the word. Another similar word is 샤라임베, 샤라임베. Or more commonly, 야무샤라임베. So English translation would be, how embarrassing. So this doesn't have any age restriction. You can use it as an adult or a child. An interesting example where you could use would be, let's say you were very excited and were planning to do this one homework, and you thought you did it, and then you come to a class and you didn't do your homework. Somehow you forgot about it. So you might tell yourself, oh, 야무샤라임베. So it's like, oh, how embarrassing, I forgot to do this, etc. So this could be a case where you could use that. Another similar phrase, but a bit more intense than 샤라임베 is 눕니 볼래. 눕니 볼래. So 볼래 is a word that means very shameful, very filthy and ugly action done by someone. So 눕니 is eye. So when you say 눕니 볼래, it's like, oh my gosh, such a filth of the eyes, like the direct translation, but the meaning of this word is like, what you have done is so shameful. I have to say, in English people might say, oh my god, or OMG, but here people can say 눕니 볼래. So it's like someone else feeling the shame of someone else's action, and they can say 눕니 볼래. For example, you are working on this project and you realize this other person was plagiarizing, and you can say 눕니 볼래 because that's not a honest thing to do. So that's like a case where you will use a phrase like that. The next phrase is 특징. The way I'm saying it relates to when it will be used. So you'll use this word when something or someone has startled you. So, sometimes people can say, oh, in English or in any language, but in Mongolia, people may say exclamations. So there's really not direct meaning of this phrase. Instead of just like, this word just means, oh, your father. But just like some of the interjection or exclamation phrases, this word only implies that you are startled. The next phrase is pe, pe, and that's also how people will say it with that kind of connotation. It's when you're so perplexed and in shock. For example, if you see a very, very expensive item and you did not expect this to be that expensive, you can say, "Pe, this is so expensive." So that'll be one of the cases where you will use this phrase. And this will be a last one in my negative phrases, and I will give this to you as a homework because I also need to figure out how to spell this word properly. But I've heard this word a lot where people will say yoku yoku, yoku. So this word is when people are kind of done with something and they don't want to be bothered by it anymore, and they're like, oh, just leave it alone. So that word means just leave it alone, but they'll say yoku yoku. Or another common phrase is toktasha, toktasha. So tok is like something bothersome, some sort of hindrance. So toktasha means like away with that hindrance. So that'll be all of the phrases that I wanted to share with you today. Thanks for tuning in today. Summary of all episodes are on my website. I update it with a collection of other helpful tips and links to aid your learning journey, so please check it out. If you find this podcast helpful, please share it with your friends, family, and colleagues. This podcast is available on Spotify, Apple, Audible, YouTube, and mBook. Thank you all for the feedback on the previous episodes, and I will continue to incorporate your feedback, so please keep them coming. See you in the next one. Bye.